Welcome to Apostolic Archive. We have gathered many wonderful sermons through the years and we have decided to share them with the world. We hope you enjoy. Please subscribe to our channel. Please like the video and comment with something you take away from this message. Also, hit the bell below so you can receive an update as soon as we upload new content. Blessings.
Well, is anybody excited? So good to see everybody here tonight. In case you don't know, I am Irvin Baxter. And I'm sorry Eddie could not be here. I know you really came to see Eddie. But anyway, you'll have to settle for me this evening. Nevertheless, I'm sure if you listen to our broadcast, you know how much fun Eddie is. He's a fabulous person. And we're so blessed to have him on our program at Politics and Religion. I'm meeting most of you for the first time tonight, and very happy to do it. When we go to a place where we've never been before, it's just such a terrific joy to get to meet the people. I feel like I know everybody already because we're on the program. I was in Dallas, Texas for the first time a couple of years back, and I got out of the car and I said something to somebody, and the guy whirled and said, "You're Irvin Baxter." He didn't know my face, but he knew my voice because he'd been listening. So anyway, it's interesting what happens. But thank you so much for coming tonight. And we're going to have an exciting evening. I feel excitement here. I think something's going to happen here tonight. So thank you very much for coming. What a great place to have a prophecy conference. Great church. I can see everybody's face because you're all just right there. So roller coaster. Don't get in the back seat and hide your eyes. I mean, if you're going to ride the thing, get in the front seat and put your hands in the air and say, "Here we go." And that's where we are. We're in the front seat of the end-time roller coaster tonight, and we're getting ready for the final plunge. And that last trumpet's going to sound, and we're going to see Jesus Christ face to face. Wow, what a day to be alive. We're the most fortunate and most blessed generation that has ever lived on the face of this earth. And I hope, this thing will either scare you or thrill you. Have you ever seen some people get thrilled with a roller coaster, and other people it scares the living daylights out of them? It's either going to scare you or it's going to thrill you. If your heart can't take it, I don't know. I guess you'll just have to die and go that way. But for those of us that realize that we don't have anything to be afraid of, frankly, I did not come here tonight to scare you. Now, if you're not saved, I'd like to scare the devil out of you. And I meant that literally. If you're not saved, because you should be frightened. But if you're saved, you have nothing to be afraid of. We have not received a spirit of fear, but of power. And wow, what a day to be alive. Okay, well listen, we gotta turn Portland upside down, or wherever. I don't know where I am right now. I keep hearing all these names, Beaverton and Albany, and I don't know where all in the world I am. But anyway, I know I landed at Portland Airport today. So, and by the way, it is right now 5 till 11. So I've never gone to sleep on my own preaching yet, but it could happen tonight. All right, well, we better get started. So if you would, please, just hang on to those envelopes that you filled out. We're going to take them up later. Now, let me tell you what we're going to do. I have a lesson I want to bring to you tonight, and then we're going to pause. We are going to receive an offering tonight. If you don't have anything to give, we're happy you're here. That's not a problem. But there is a free will offering to defray the expense of this meeting and to help keep us on the air here. We are going to do that. And then after that, I'm going to need 5 or 10 more minutes at the close of that because I want to tell you where we are right now. I want to try before we leave here tonight for all of us to understand, okay, this is where we are as we are entering 2001. Is there anybody here that didn't think you would ever see 2001? There's a bunch of us thought the rapture would be done and gone by now, right? But here we are, and we need to know exactly where we are. Well, God bless you. What a delight to see all of you. And I don't know whether I'll get to shake all of your hands or not. I'll stay here as long as you want to. But anyway, if I don't get to speak to you personally, it's a joy to have you here tonight. And I also want to thank this fine church and Pastor Barry King for hosting this meeting. We appreciate that so much as well. Okay. Tonight we're going to be talking about Antichrist Conspiracy. The men who run the world. Have you ever had the sneaking suspicion that maybe Bill Clinton doesn't run everything? At least till tomorrow. Have you ever wondered if when you voted there was really someone else behind the scenes calling the shots? I voted for change a lot of times and got the same old, same old. Anybody ever done that? Nixon came along and ran against socialism, and people voted for him, and he enacted more social legislation than any president in the history of the United States. Just makes you want to shake the guy. And you vote for read my lips, no new taxes, Mr. George Bush, and what's he do? You know what he did. He raised the taxes. And then I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really asking God to help us with his son, with George Bush's son, not his son. But but I know one thing. If George W. Bush ends up to be a total flop, it's not going to rob me of my Christian experience anyway, because I know what's getting ready to happen. We're going to win. They're going to lose. Jesus Christ is soon to be crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I don't mind telling you, I don't let those guys get my victory. They may do a bunch of stuff. They may let me down. They may disappoint me, but it's not going to affect me a whole lot, because my hope is not in the politicians of this world. Anyway, I already have reconciled the fact a long time ago there is one answer. Jesus Christ is the only answer, and we're going to be disappointed a lot of times until he gets here, but when he gets here, we won't be disappointed ever again. And so I'm very happy for that. The passage is found in 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2. This is a famous chapter of the Bible. There were people teaching that the time for the rapture was at hand. The Apostle Paul knew that was not true. Therefore, he thought to build anticipation to a fever pitch was not healthy for the church, that people would soon end up disillusioned, and therefore he wrote this second chapter of 2 Thessalonians to alleviate some of what was happening here. I want to read 9 verses. If you have your Bible, you can follow along with me, starting with verse number 1. This is 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him. That's the subject, the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him. That ye be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. There were some letters circulating that were written under the supposition that was the Apostle Paul. He said, I didn't write those letters. Verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Of course, you all know the man of sin, the son of perdition, is the Antichrist. He's called by many names in Scripture. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That's the event known as the abomination of desolation, when the Antichrist will move into the temple. When you see that event, you know there's 3.5 years until the Battle of Armageddon. Of course, it is at Armageddon that Jesus Christ comes back to the earth, destroys the Antichrist, puts Satan in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. At that time, we crown Jesus Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So that's where we are in this particular passage. Verse 5. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, or he who now restraineth will restrain, until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, speaking of the Antichrist, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Would you look one more time at verse 7? The mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who now restrains will restrain until he be taken out of the way. I have been raised in church all of my life. I have heard a lot of sermons. However, I have never heard a sermon on the mystery of iniquity. This caught my attention one day, and I began to investigate, what are we talking about here? The mystery of iniquity. Now, I've heard a lot of sermons on the mystery of godliness. 1 Timothy 3:16 says, "Great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, believed on the world, preached unto the Gentiles, seen of angels, and received up into glory." Now, that's the mystery of godliness. But that's not what we're talking about here tonight. We're talking about the mystery of iniquity. So there is a mystery going on, and it has to do, it's presently being stalled by something, which I think is the time clock of God. It's being stalled, but it tells us that when the fullness of time comes, that wicked shall be revealed. And the revelation of that wicked, the Antichrist, happens at the abomination of desolation. The Bible very clearly says in verse 3 and 4, "Then shall the man of sin, the son of perdition, be revealed when he stands in the temple claiming to be God, claiming to be Messiah." So there will actually be a revelation of the Antichrist. But right now, we are under the power of the mystery of iniquity, the men who rule the world. This all came together in my mind earlier this year. For a long time, I have been a follower of a man by the name of Mikhail Gorbachev. You may have heard of him. Mr. Gorbachev burst upon the world scene in 1985. We first heard of him when Margaret Thatcher made the statement about Gorbachev, "This is a man with whom we can do business." He was nominated to be the head of the Soviet Union in 1985 by the longtime foreign minister of the Soviet Union, Andrei Gromyko. Gromyko said to the Soviet Politburo, "Comrades, this man has a nice smile, but he has iron teeth." Reader's Digest picked that up and carried an article in October of 1987, the title of the article, "The Man with the Nice Smile and the Iron Teeth." The nickname stuck. And in every biography, I probably own 10 biographies about Mikhail Gorbachev. In every biography, they talk about this nickname, the man with the iron teeth. Now, I have to confess to you that when I heard this, it caught my attention. Because there's a prophecy in the Bible about iron teeth. In Daniel chapter number 7, verse number 7, it talks about a 10-horned beast, which happens to be the beast that symbolizes the Antichrist and his kingdom. And it says that this 10-horned beast had great iron teeth. Well, I immediately began to try to figure out, is this a coincidence? Or is this significant? If it is a coincidence, it's extremely coincidental that just when it's time for the Antichrist to appear on the world scene, that a world-dominating politician of Gorbachev's stature would burst onto the world scene and get stuck with the nickname, the man with the iron teeth. I begin to try to figure out if anyone in history, if any politician in history has ever been described as having iron teeth. And I can never find any evidence that any person was ever described as having iron teeth until Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev. Well, I filed that away in the back of my mind. I didn't know whether it meant anything or whether it did not. However, I had written a book in 1985 before I knew anything about Gorbachev. The title of the book is A Message for the President. By the way, there are copies available here tonight. And in that book, from the prophecies of the Bible, I had stated that the Berlin Wall was going to come down, that the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would throw the world into the New World Order. I also stated in the book that the man who brought down the Berlin Wall would probably be the Antichrist. Well, when 1989 rolled around and the Berlin Wall in fact did come down, I was quite interested that the same man who was known as the man with the iron teeth was given the Nobel Peace Prize for tearing down the Berlin Wall. So my suspicions were heightened. Furthermore, he wrote a book in 1987 called Perestroika. And that book is Mikhail Gorbachev's blueprint for the one world government, which we call the New World Order. Masterfully written, but in great detail, his plan for one world government, and every part of his plan perfectly conforms to the world government described in the Bible as the end-time world government, the Antichrist. Now, let me level with you. I do not claim to know that Mikhail Gorbachev is the Antichrist. I don't know that, and I'm not telling you that he is. If I had to guess, I think that's who it is. But I'm not sure I'm right. I want to make that really clear because I don't know right now for certain who it is. However, just keep that in your mind, because Mikhail Gorbachev passed from power suddenly in 1991. All of us lived through it. You know what it was like. And it's like he disappeared. Now here's this man that had stood astride world affairs for 6 dynamic years. I mean, he changed the world. When he entered Cold War, we were all going to bed every night thinking there was some grotesque monster somewhere with his finger on that button just ready to push it and blow us away. You remember those days? I remember before I got saved, I remember whispering to God many nights when I was all alone, when nobody knew I was praying. I didn't want anybody to know I was praying. God, please don't let him push the button tonight. I'm not ready. I remember those days. Well, that was when Mikhail Gorbachev came to power. He left power 6 years later. The hated Berlin Wall is down. Their pictures are on the front page of world leaders out there rolling up the hated Iron Curtain. People are coming over the top of the Berlin Wall, hugging one another, dancing on top of the Berlin Wall. And everybody's in this euphoria. The Cold War is over, and everything is back together again. So he did that, and then he just said, I'm out of here. What does a guy who changes the course of the world, what does he do for an encore? What does he do when he's in retirement? Write your memoirs? Well, he did that. I have them. I read every word of it from cover to cover. It's about that thick. He did the memoir thing, but that's not all he did. He has been working day and night behind the scenes since that time, and I have done a little digging, and I know what he's been doing. Actually, he left power in 91. In 1992, he showed up at a conference in Rio de Janeiro called the Earth Summit. And as he showed up there at the Earth Summit, he and Marie Strong put their heads together to create a new organization called Green Cross International. Because Mr. Gorbachev believes that there's one issue that will unite the nations and the peoples of the world, and that's environment. Because the air doesn't stop when it gets to the Canadian border. We end up having to breathe the same air the Canadians breathe. And it doesn't stop when it gets to the Mexican border. We all end up breathing the same air. We end up drinking the same water. And these environmental issues are transnational in their character. Consequently, Gorbachev believed that the environment is the rising issue of modern times of the 21st century. Consequently, he managed to create an organization called Green Cross International, and then he managed to get himself appointed as the president. So Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev is the head of the world's #1 environmental organization called Green Cross International. He still holds that position as I speak to you at this moment. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but I'm talking to you tonight about the men who rule the world. Most of them have never been elected. But before I'm done tonight, you will find that there is a network that most of us are totally oblivious to. But I will prove to you tonight that there's an interconnection. And remember what I'm talking about from the Bible. The mystery of iniquity. The plan for one world government. The plan to do what God said he will do. Satan's always wanted to do what God said he would do. And that's the mystery of iniquity. Now, follow it along. Maurice Strong was the chairman of the 1992 Earth Summit, and he collaborated with Mikhail Gorbachev in order to establish Green Cross International. Now, Mr. Maurice Strong is a Canadian. He's a billionaire. He is a socialist, and he is a one-worlder from the top of his head to the sole of his feet. It's also interesting that he owns a neat little 10,000-acre ranch in Colorado. And this ranch has a Zen Buddhist temple on it. And it has many other New Age worship centers. A little strange. I mean, I've never seen a Zen Buddhist temple, let alone have one on my ranch in the heartland of Christian America, no less. Now, everything I'm telling you tonight is absolutely true. I can document it to the max, okay? I'm not out here trying to tell you things that are not true. This is absolutely true what I'm telling you tonight. So follow along. So Mr. Maurice Strong, and we're going to hear from him again this evening because you need to know who this man is. He is becoming more prominent every single day. Just to show you the relationship between Mr. Gorbachev and Mr. Strong, they are putting their heads together here at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Now, since that time, they've done many things together, including recently publishing a new document called the Earth Charter, which is the document that they hope to make the belief system of the New Age, New World Order. Keep all that in your mind, and let's consider another personage that is much in the news. A man by the name of Ted Turner. You may have heard of him. Mr. Ted Turner of CNN. Now, Turner is very powerful in that CNN is one of the most dominant news media giants in the world. They, a few years ago, merged with Time Warner, which publishes Time magazine. Time Warner happens to control circulation of 95% of all magazines in America. The way I know this is because I tried to get in Time magazine on all the bookstores in America and kept hitting these incredible blockades. Finally, someone looked at me and said, if you want to be in all the magazine racks of America, you need to contact Time Warner. They control 95% of all newsstand distribution in America, which means they control 95% of what all of us read. So they can keep us thinking about what they want us to think about. About 90% of all newspapers in America are controlled by 3 or 4 firms. So there are 3 or 4 men setting the ideological territory for all the minds of America, because all you have to do to know what's in USA Today is flip on your radio and see what Rush Limbaugh is talking about. And they all get up, read USA Today, they find something that hits their hot button, that's what they talk about that day. So that's what all of America thinks about that day, and just a few men are sitting here and they're just controlling what everybody's going to think about all day long. I'm not telling you, well, what am I telling you? Is there a plan? Absolutely, there is a plan. The Bible calls it the mystery of iniquity. Mr. Ted Turner is a great supporter of Mikhail Gorbachev. He actually stated that he thought Mikhail Gorbachev was the greatest world leader in the last 2,000 years. It's the same Ted Turner who back in 1991-92 said that Christianity was a religion for losers. And he was named Humanist of the Year in 1992. If you don't know what a humanist is, you should know, because a humanist is a person who believes that mankind will determine his own destiny. It's as opposed to a person who believes that God directs the affairs of men. Humanism is communism, and communism is humanism. Ted Turner, Humanist of the Year, 1992. Has anybody heard of the television channel that they put in all the schools of America? What's it called? Is it Channel 1? Yeah, Channel 1. Mr. Ted Turner magnanimously agreed to place televisions in every schoolroom in America so that the children, young people could be educated in current affairs with one condition. All the schools had to agree to play 10 to 20 minutes of current events every morning, supplied by CNN. So he bought his way into the minds of every young person in America. Now, I can tell some of you rednecks right now, you're ready to go get your rifle, join a militia group, and you're going to blow somebody away. Okay, that's not what I'm trying. I read your mind, didn't I? That's not what I'm trying to do here tonight. That's not what you should be doing here tonight. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty. Yeah, I see these guys, these macho men all the time. I'll blow somebody away. And you say, well, how about getting a Bible study chart and going teaching somebody what's going on here? And their knees turn to jelly, and it's like they're about to faint. I could never teach a Bible study. No, I can go kill somebody, but I could never teach them a Bible study. Come on, He-Man. Caught you, didn't I? Now, it's the same Ted Turner that believes avidly in one world government, so much so that within the last 3 or 4 years, he gave the largest single donation ever given to an organization, $1 billion. That's with a B. $1 billion donation to the United Nations. He is such a believer that what we need is a one world government, and that the United Nations is in fact that one world government. Now try to keep some of this in your mind if you can. I'm going to pull the strings together here in just a moment. There's another man, though, that you must know about. And that's a man by the name of Kofi Annan. He is presently the head of the United Nations, the Secretary General of the UN. Now, President Clinton did not like the path that the United Nations was taking back in 1996-97. Boutros Ghali was the General Secretary of the United Nations. He was from Egypt. But Clinton didn't like him. He felt like he was dragging his feet. He was not pushing UN reform fast enough. He was not moving the world toward a one-world government fast enough. And so when it came time to renew the term of Boutros Ghali, whoever named him that ought to be slapped. Clinton said the United States is not going to allow a second term. Consequently, Clinton handpicked Mr. Kofi Annan to replace Boutros Ghali. Kofi Annan is a lifelong employee of the United Nations, the first Secretary General from that background. Most Secretary Generals up till now have either been former heads of state or former secretaries of state of some nation on the face of this earth without a lifelong background in the UN. Not true concerning Kofi Annan. So Kofi Annan was chosen, and his number one, the reason he was chosen, handpicked by Clinton, was because Clinton felt that the United Nations needed to be reformed in order to get it ready to govern the world in the 21st century. And here we are about to enter the 21st century, not just the 21st century, but the new millennium. Now, when Annan became Secretary General, he immediately began to fulfill the wishes of Bill Clinton. He created a new position in the United Nations. It's called the Secretariat for UN Reform. And he appointed a man to be Under Secretary for UN Reform. That was to be his total goal and purpose, was to reform the UN in order to prepare it for global governance into the 21st century. And when he picked Maurice Strong. Now this is interesting. This Maurice Strong, this global socialist with a Zen Buddhist temple on his 10,000-acre ranch, a partner with Mikhail Gorbachev, co-author of the Earth Charter. And now all of a sudden, he is going to be entrusted with reshaping the only structure we have on the face of this globe that's designed to rule the world, designed to be a one-world government. Now, one more point I don't want to miss. The United States, in order to force the United Nations to reform, we had been withholding some of our dues. About $1 billion or so we owed the United Nations. And we said, we're not going to pay it until you get all this fat and all this let out until you reform. So Annan begins to reform, and he brings Marie Strong to help him. And as soon as Marie Strong comes, he and Annan show up at the White House because Marie Strong worked very closely with one of the occupants at the White House, one Al Gore. For Al Gore is a very extreme environmentalist. He wrote a book called Earth in the Balance, and he was a very active participant at the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro, and he and Strong had worked very close together. So Annan thought if he took Strong with him to the White House, they would get, between Al Gore and Bill Clinton, they would get them to pay up the back dues. Well, they didn't get it done immediately. However, there was a deal struck recently to finally rectify all of those things. Clinton seems to have got it done just before he left office. It scares the daylights out of me, all he has got done just before he has left office. He sort of pulled another one of those Slick Willie things today, didn't he? Yeah. Now, let me make something clear here, though. I'm not really here to tamper with your politics, merely to say to you that politics is not the answer. And if you put your hopes there, you will be disappointed. So I'm not really trying, I don't even really want to come across as being disrespectful to our leaders. I don't think that's what I should be doing. Nevertheless, it is quite interesting what we have been watching over the last few days. But now let's pause right here in the middle and let's summarize. Okay, what do we know so far? We know that Clinton handpicked Kofi Annan. Annan handpicked Marie Strong to reform the UN. Strong is a bosom buddy with Mikhail Gorbachev. Ted Turner is an advisor to Mikhail Gorbachev. As a matter of fact, Gorbachev has this organization called Green Cross International, and he has a board of advisors, such people as Yoko Ono, the widow of John Lennon, Olivia Newton-John, John Denver before his untimely death, the New Age scientist Carl Sagan, ex-Secretary General of the United Nations, Javier Perez de Cuellar, and he has two presidential advisors that he leans heavy on. You probably will know both of them, Mr. Robert Redford, Ted Turner. That's his two presidential advisors. I take his quarterly publication. It's published in there. I'm not telling you something you cannot find out for yourself. All right. So Turner is the advisor to Gorbachev. Turner donates $1 billion to the United Nations. And so now we got Gorbachev and Strong and Turner and Clinton and Kofi Annan. Wonder what they're doing. You think they're just taking a stroll through the park and all this is just happening? Or do you think there's a design? Do you think they know exactly where they're going and what they're attempting to do? Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, they know exactly what they're attempting to do. Now, when Turner gave $1 billion to the UN, he didn't want to just throw it out there and it do nothing. So he established some controls. He created a special department of the UN, and if you give $1 billion to End Time tonight, we'll create a special department for you. So they created a special department, and there had to be someone to administer because Turner's a good enough businessman. He didn't want this money just to be wasted. He wanted to make sure it accomplished what he had donated it for. So he tapped into the administration of Bill Clinton, the Undersecretary for Global Affairs, a man by the name of Timothy Worth. So he leaves the State Department of the United States of America and goes now to administer this $1 billion to help the UN become more effective. Now, my question is, did he really change bosses, or is he still working for the same people? I think he's still working for the same people. You're going to see the name Timothy Worth come up again. Like I said, he was the Undersecretary of State of Global Affairs in the Clinton administration, State Department, up until the time that Ted Turner said, Bill, I need him more than you do. Loan him to me for a while. Now the plot thickens. There's a man that you should know if you don't. His name is Strobe Talbott, one of the most powerful men on the face of this earth. The average American probably does not know who he is. Mr. Strobe Talbott, in 1992, wrote an article for the Time magazine called The Birth of the Global Nation. In this article, he stated that U.S. sovereignty as we have known it up till now will cease to exist in the 21st century. He said unabashedly in this article in Time magazine, for which he was at that time a correspondent, he said, in the 21st century, we will all answer to a single global authority. Now, who cares? Well, if you know what the Bible prophesies, sir, you do. Because your Bible explicitly prophesies a one-world governmental system where all of us will answer to a single global authority. But the Bible calls that global authority the Antichrist or the beast. So here he is in Time magazine as far back as 1992, advocating the very system that your Bible says is ultimately going to rule this world. Now, why do we care what Strobe Talbott has to say? Well, the reason we care is because when Bill Clinton came to power, the first thing he did was to appoint Strobe Talbott Undersecretary of State of the United States of America and gave him the most sensitive position to look over relations between the U.S. and the other the nuclear superpower, Russia. Mr. Strobe Talbott is such friends with the Russians that he was given the honor of translating Nikita Khrushchev's memoirs. I know that's true because I interviewed Sergei Khrushchev, the son of Nikita Khrushchev, on Politics and Religion program, and he told us that day that Strobe Talbott is the one who translated his father's memoirs from Russian into English. Now, the reason this is also, we might rationalize some of this. Well, Clinton probably doesn't know. I mean, he's got to run the whole world. He's got to run this whole country. He probably doesn't know what Strobe Talbott believes. You can't know everything. Well, that excuse doesn't fly either because Strobe Talbott and Bill Clinton were roommates in college. They know each other very well. It might shock you how much Strobe Talbott knows about Bill Clinton. But they were roommates in college when they both were Rhodes Scholars in England, where all good one-worlders must go, because Cecil Rhodes established a scholarship way back in the early 1900s to groom potential world rulers in the edicts of socialism and globalism. And therefore, both Clinton and Talbott were chosen as rising, shining diplomatic stars, and they shared a room together while in England, going through their times as Rhodes Scholars. So Clinton knew exactly what Talbott believes, and yet he has leaned on him as one of his strongest advisors throughout the entirety of his administration, because Clinton believes that we must move toward global governance. All of us know about Mr. Al Gore. Came very close to being the President of the United States of America, and he has worked very strongly with environmentalism and wrote the book Nature in its Fullest is God. At least the statement was, nature in its fullest is God. That is a quote from Earth in the Balance by Al Gore. Now, let me get on down to where you can really comprehend what I'm talking about here. You have to meet Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller has been given the title Prophet of the United Nations because he has been the visionary of where world government must go next. He has written many books. I've interviewed Robert Mueller several times. If I called him right now, he would treat me like a long-lost friend. Up until recently, he was the chancellor for the University of Peace in Costa Rica, which is the UN university that is there, which happens to have a president called Maurice Strong. These guys just keep on crossing each other's paths some way. Nevertheless, Robert Mueller was the Assistant Secretary General to 3 Secretary Generals at the UN, worked at the UN for 38 years. And during this time, he authored a book called The Birth of a Global Civilization. This was actually published in 1991. Does anybody recognize the title? The Birth of a Global Civilization. That was published in 91. In 92, Strom Talbot writes the article, The Birth of a Global Nation. Mueller writes it in 91 and calls it The Birth of a Global Civilization. Talbot writes in the article in 92, The Birth of a Global Nation. And the principles in Mueller's book, which I have read from cover to cover, are the exact same principles espoused by Mr. Talbot. Apparently, they're reading from the same material. I suspect that Talbot read Mueller's book and wrote his article from the principles in Mueller's book. And Mueller was Assistant Secretary General to 3 Secretary Generals: Utant, Kurt Waldheim, Javier Perez de Cuellar, over a period of many, many years. Now, that's not all that you need to know about Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller also wrote a book called The New Genesis, Shaping a Global Spirituality. Has anybody noticed how much spirituality there is around today? I mean, people who commune with the moon are spiritual. Just because people say, I'm spiritual, that does not mean they believe in Jesus Christ. They may mean, I worship the earth, or I pray to the sun. There's a lot of things under the guise of spirituality today, and Robert Mueller wrote this book, The New Genesis, Shaping a Global Spirituality, and in here he said that we all really worship one God. We call him different things, but as long as we're spiritual, we're good. And he attributed some of his best training to Utant, who was a Buddhist, and Robert Mueller claims to be a Catholic. As a matter of fact, Robert Mueller was entrusted with planning the Pope's trip to the UN when he spoke at the UN a few years ago. Now, is your head spinning yet? So he writes this book called Shaping a Global Spirituality. I was talking to Robert Mueller one day on the phone, and he said, you know, Irvin, he said, we have to face it. We have brought the world together as far as we can politically. The only way we can complete the unity of mankind is through spirituality. He said, you know, I think it's terrible that the political leaders of the world get together every day at the United Nations and talk, and the religious leaders won't even speak to each other. He said, what we need is a sister organization to the United Nations called the United Religions. Now, he said that to me personally. I was not surprised that within the next year or two, I hear that a new organization is being formed called the United Religions Initiative. And when I look at the signatures, there's 3 founding signers. Bishop William Swing of the Episcopalian Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, Mr. Robert Mueller, and one other, the name slips me. He ends up being one of the signers, the 3 original signers. Now, I want to show you how much influence and how much Robert Mueller has to do with what is happening to Strobe Talbot, because Talbot is copycatting Mueller. Now, I want you to follow here what's happening and where Mueller is getting his inspiration from. He has designed a world core curriculum which he thinks every human being should have to go through in order to prepare us to be good global citizens, to think globally. He has actually authored a world core curriculum, and it's being used in many schools around the country. They have a Robert Mueller School in Arlington, Texas, where I will be doing a prophecy conference in March. And in his world core curriculum, he credits the teachings of Alice Bailey and the Tibetan teacher Jwa Kul as providing the basis for his world core curriculum. Now, if Talbot is one of the most influential people in our State Department, And he is copying after Robert Mueller, and Robert Mueller is copying after Alice Bailey, which he says he is. Maybe we should know who Alice Bailey is. Alice Bailey happens to preside over a publishing company called Lucifer's Publishing, and put out a magazine for a while called Lucifer Magazine. Anybody ever heard of Lucifer? Now, it was difficult to sell copies of Lucifer Magazine back in the early 1900s. So they decided to change the name but keep the magazine the same. So they shortened the name to Lucis Trust. And Lucis Trust has been headquartered at UN Plaza now for many years, recently moved to Wall Street. And when all the world leaders got with the Son of God, but it's true, the mystery of iniquity does already work. He's right in there. Yes, there is right in there, I promise you. Tell you what, if we tried to fit everyone in this puzzle who's in it, it would boggle your mind. We don't have time to do that tonight. I do have a few more people that I want to deal with, though, that you need to understand. Because I would say that unless you have heard this lesson before, most of you walked in here and you didn't know most of these people. But they are the people who are ruling the world. But they're not ruling us. If we have been transformed out of the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. Now that may be somebody's father, but it's not our father, because we have been born again, and we have been set free, and we have been transformed into the kingdom of Jesus Christ. Man, that just excites the daylight out of me. You know, Jesus stood in Pilate's judgment hall, and everybody was screaming their head off, crucify and crucify him. And he was as cool as a cucumber. Didn't bother to answer the charges. Pilate said, "Why aren't you talking? Don't you know I have power to take your life or give it?" And Jesus said, "You have no power at all except it be given you from God. No man takes my life, I lay it down." And suddenly, the person trying was put on trial. And suddenly Pilate felt very uncomfortable because Jesus was doing exactly what he was ordained to do. And let me tell you, that's exactly what God intends for every one of us to live. If we're the children of God, we're in this world, but this world has no power over us whatsoever. Do you know when you're born again that Satan is destroyed out of your life? The Bible says that Jesus Christ came through death to destroy him and have the power of death, even the devil. I see people all the time facing devils. Ooh, the devil's doing this, the devil's behind this bush, the devil. Let me tell you what. The best way you treat the devil is to ignore him. Because he has no power. Once you're born again, he has no power over you whatsoever. He can dance around my cage, but he can't get in my cage. Because Jesus Christ, my Savior, said, "I give you power over serpents and over scorpions and over all the power of the enemy." And the Bible tells me that my captain and my Savior, Jesus Christ, came and through his death, he destroyed him that had the power of death. I would know Satan is beat right now. He's not going to be beat. He is beat. And when you're born again, well, that drives him crazy. It drives him crazy when there's someone to understand what happened on that cross. That cross was not a little deal. That cross was the big deal. That cross was the whole deal. That's when Satan went down. When Jesus said it was finished, that means, "That's my
out of here with the keys on my finger 3 days from right now. You know Satan had the power of death until Satan exacted the penalty of death from Jesus when he didn't know it, and by breaking the contract, he lost the keys to his own house. Jesus can walk out 3 days later. He says, I am he that was dead, I am alive forevermore, and I've got the keys of death and of hell. Oh, death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? I got to quit this because I can preach right there. Let me tell you, if you've never been born again, what in the world are you waiting on? Because that's where it's at. By the way, I have put a free copy of my brochure I wrote, Why Getting Born Again. Please do me a favor. Get somewhere tonight and tomorrow, and we can really concentrate and read it carefully. Because a lot of people talk, they throw this term born again around, and they, yeah, I love the Lord, I've been born again. That's not necessarily mean that. So please read it carefully. If you have questions about it, call us at any time, and it'll straighten you all out. You won't be able probably to get to me, because if all I did was ask that phone, I'd never do anything else in my life but answer phones. But, call the office. We've got people there that can help you if you need help through that. Because I tell you, I don't want one person from this prophecy conference to miss the rapture. Because you're here because you love me, you love Eddie, you love what we're doing, and I thank you for that. And we're all here because we love God. And we don't want to be sucked into this mystery of iniquity, because let me tell you, what you don't know can hurt you. What you don't know can hurt you. It's vital that you really know what happened on that cross and what it all means to be born again. So please read that. I'd appreciate it very much, and it's the best thing I could ever give to you as a gift. Okay. I'm going to hurry. Holy as well. I don't ever preach this way to my own church. Now, I do want you to be disappointed, because Bishop Swain was contacted by the United Nations, I'm persuaded probably by Robert Mueller, in 1995, and this official of the UN, whoever it was, I haven't yet been able to prove it was Robert Mueller, but I suspect it was. They said to Bishop Swain, all the leaders of the world will be converging on San Francisco on June the 26th of 1995 to celebrate the signing of the Constitution of the United Nations 50 years prior. Would you be willing to host an ecumenical service of political leaders and spiritual leaders at Grace Cathedral in order to commemorate this momentous occasion? Bishop Swain graciously consented. The meeting was held, and a spark was lit between Swain, between Mueller, and others. A spark was lit, and Swain went on a world tour the next year, 1996. He met with Bishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. He went to see the Dalai Lama. He went to the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. He stopped by to see Mother Teresa. He came on back by the Archbishop of Canterbury. He stopped to meet with all of what he considered to be the prestigious religious leaders. I didn't get a visit, but anyway. He traveled, and when he returned, he decided that the time was right to launch a sister organization to the United Nations called the United Religions. I happened to read an article about this, and I began to follow it very carefully. They had their first charter writing conference in San Francisco in 1997. In 1998, I went to the charter writing conference. It was held at Stanford University in California, and I went in there, and I was stunned by what I saw. I saw indigenous people who worship the Great White Spirit. They were there with their drums, and they gave the Reverend Charles Gibbs a set of antennas that they wear when they're worshiping the earth god. And here this officiating bishop, he puts this antenna on, and he goes around the rest of the meeting that day with these pagan antennas. And I'm watching this stuff. And the Wiccans were there. The Wiccans were there, and they were all part of it. And I'm there with a tape recorder and my camera, recording the birth of the prophesied one-world religion of the end time is going to work hand in glove with the Antichrist, all of it a part of the Mystery of Iniquity. I'm the spy. Hey, one of the burning ambitions of my life is to be the Antichrist's worst migraine headache. I am going to drive him nuts. Now, I'm not just doing that just because that's the little boy coming out of the movie. It's not just that. I'm doing that because somebody has got to expose what's going on because a lot of innocent people could be sucked into this thing so fast. I'm watching it happen. I'm watching good people be sucked into this thing because they don't know what the truth is. So that's the reason that politics and religion is so critical. I'll just tell you, we tripled from last year to this year, and I'm very grateful for that, except it wasn't enough. I mean, we're running out of time. I sat down with our anytime staff last Tuesday. I said, your assignment for the next staff meeting next Tuesday is to bring me a plan to reach every human being on this earth with the gospel of Jesus Christ within the next 5 years. And they look at me like, we're going to reach the whole world? There comes a time when if you believe what you believe, you cannot shun that responsibility. And besides that, who would want to? What a thing to do in your life. So because Jesus said this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. This is the income. Hey, Portland, let's just start a mass movement here tonight. Let's turn this city upside down, and then Oregon, I think Oregon needs to be turned upside down from what I'm hearing. Why not? If not us, who? If not now, when? If not here, where? I know we can always wait for somebody else to do it. Let George do it. But I don't know where George is. So, finally it was announced, June 26, 2000, Carnegie Hall, Mellon University, Pittsburgh. The Constitution signing will be held. I jumped in my vehicle with a friend and we headed there. And when I walked in, they know who I am, but they allowed me to come because I'm a nice guy. They know I'm a spy. They know I don't believe. There's a very nice lady on Bishop Quinn's staff, and she likes me, that she knows I'm against what they're doing. And as soon as I get this, she leaves everybody else and pulls over to the side and sits down. Do you think that Bishop Quinn is the Antichrist? That's what she asked me. Don't help me. That's what she asked me. I said, no, I don't. However, I do believe he is giving birth to a global religious system that will ultimately end up under the control of the false prophet, which will work hand in glove with the Antichrist. I do believe that. She said, I said, I'll be wrong. And she's there coordinating this whole meeting. And she's the one who is to prove the Antichrist. So help me, that's exactly what happened. And I watched while they came together, webcast around the world. An official from the United Nations placed the call, congratulations. It was aired to the whole auditorium. I sat there and listened to it. Congratulations on the birth of the United Religions, a sister organization to the United Nations. Now, when I was there 2 years before, at the conclusion of the meeting, they had everybody in the whole room come around and say something in the microphone. One word. They said truth, peace, love. I love your things. They tried to get me to go say stuff. I wouldn't go do it. I was the only guy in the whole room. I felt like a 3-2 geek that was standing up when everybody else was bound down. And then when they signed the Constitution for the United Religions, June 26th of 2000, they passed it. Everybody around got to be a charter member of the United Religions. And they passed the footboard right into my nose, and I passed it right on by. They said, you want to sign? I said, no, I don't want to sign. because I am not for a global religion. I don't believe that Hindus and Buddhists and Muslims and Wiccans are all serving the same God. I don't believe that whatsoever. I believe there's one Lord, and His name is Jesus Christ. And Jesus said, I am Alpha, I am Omega, I'm the beginning and the end, I'm the first and the last. Beside me there is no Savior. Hey, let me tell you something. The first commandment says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And all of this pluralism and all this multitude. Man, I almost feel like a Pentecostal preacher tonight. Maybe that's because I am a Pentecostal preacher. I'm trying. 5 to 12. All right. I'm hurting. All right. Thank you very much. It may interest you now that the headquarters for the United Religions Organization is a closed military base in San Francisco called the Presidio. It's somewhat interesting that that's also the headquarters for the Gorbachev Foundation. Isn't it strange that the United Religions is headquartered at the same place as the guy with the iron teeth that tore down the Berlin Wall? Interesting coincidence. I don't know that. I have been told that Gorbachev, because of his environmental background and authority, has actually been given the job of closing all of our military bases that we don't want to use anymore to make sure it's done in an environmentally sound way. But Mikhail Gorbachev, the ex-head of the Soviet Union, is doing the job of closing our military bases. Now, don't take that one to the bank because I think that's true, but I'm not positive, okay? Sorry, I should be better documenting on that point. Okay. A couple more things you need to know. Because there's another very powerful entity in the world that we haven't said anything about. And that is the Roman Catholic Church. Now, the Roman Catholic Church is very powerful. There are many wonderful people that have extreme allegiance to this organization. They claim about 1 billion adherents worldwide. Now, that figure could be inflated. I do not know, but if it's accurate, you're talking about 1/6 of the entire world's population. So where do they stand in this whole mix? Well, there's a man his name is Cardinal Francis Orenzi of Nigeria, and he's the Vatican's director of interreligious dialogue, and he works very close with Bishop Swing on interfaith matters. I could tell you many more things. I'm not going to take the time tonight because I do not want to hold you longer than you're able to stay. But let me just tell you where the Roman Catholic Church is in interfaith issues. In 1994, there was the first new Catholic catechism published in the last 400 years. It came out in 94. And I picked up a newspaper, and they were commenting on some of the outstanding changes in this new catechism. What I read in the paper, I couldn't believe, so I went out to the store and bought a copy of the new catechism, the official copy printed by the Roman Catholic Church, because in this article it said that the new catechism said that Muslims have salvation. And I couldn't believe it, so I went out and bought the catechism. Sure enough, it's item number 841 in the particular book I bought, in the paperback edition I bought. It was pages 242 and 243. Listen to what it says. The plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator. In the first place amongst whom are the Muslims. These profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. The plan of salvation also includes, in the first place, the Muslims. So it said, I couldn't believe it really meant that. I thought maybe this was tricky wording to try to bring unity. And so when I was at the Constitution signing in Pittsburgh earlier this year, there was a large contingent of Roman Catholic priests that were there, and one in particular was very bold, saying that he was the official representative of the Roman Catholic Church from San Francisco to the Constitution signing. His name was Father O'Rourke. So I went to him after the meeting was over, and I said, I want to ask you something. I noticed that Pope John Paul II met with Muslims and Jews and Christians for an ecumenical meeting in Jerusalem while he was there. What is the official stand of the Roman Catholic Church? When you deal with Muslims, do you teach them that they must believe in Jesus as the Messiah in order to have salvation? He said, no, that's heresy. I'm not telling you second-hand knowledge. I'll tell you what happened to me. It's absolutely not. And then I was interviewing Hans Kuhn on our program just about 3 or 4 months ago. I asked him the same question. He said, he even volunteered this. He said, even an atheist can be saved as long as he is following his conscience. And Hans Kuhn was one of the official theologians to the Vatican Council too. And he is the man who has penned the Global Ethics, which was adopted by the Parliament of World Religions in 1993. What am I saying to you tonight? I'm telling you, we're further down the pike than most of us realize. The mystery of iniquity is far advanced tonight while we are here. The Bible says that the false prophet will pour down fire from heaven in the sight of men. I want to ask you something. How will you react when you see with your own eyes a great religious leader pouring fire down from heaven and preaching intercession? What kind of emotional gymnastics is going to go on inside of you? If you know the truth, none. Because Paul said, if we get an angel from heaven comes preaching any other gospel than that which we are preaching, you let him be accursed. But if you don't know what the truth is, you're going to be like putty in the hands of the Antichrist. And that's the reason that we do Bible studies, and we do all that we do. That's the reason we've got a course out there to try to provide a foundation. Because I'll just tell you straight from the shoulder, we may see no persecution. On the other hand, you could be required to give your life to the man Jesus Christ. And if you're a true Christian, you are prepared to do that. And I just want to let you know, I can't tell you everything that's coming. I know there's some trouble coming from many parts of the world. I do not know how severe it will happen for America. But I'll tell you this one thing. If you've got your mind made up, it doesn't make any difference because you've already settled that issue. Now, if you are in Christianity for what you get out of it, you will repent. But if you're in Christianity because you love Jesus as your Savior and your Lord, then your life will not be dear to you. You follow what I'm saying to you? You've got to be really careful with this Christianity. If you'll serve Jesus Christ, you'll never have a problem. You'll always have 3 cars in the garage. I'm not trying to find anybody. But that is not a scriptural message. Jesus Christ said, you'll be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Some of you they will put in prison. It's in your Bible. Let me tell you, when you're totally committed, it don't matter what the price is. You say, well, I'm not sure I'm totally committed. If you're not totally committed, you're not saved. Because when you repent, you die to self. And if you haven't died to self yet, you haven't repented yet. Am I blowing you away? I'm telling you, the days for playing games and for play-acting Christianity are just over. The mystery of iniquity works, and it's just about to be released. And only those who understand the mystery of godliness will be able to withstand the mystery of iniquity. Man, it's an exciting deal right now. If your heart can take it. Oh, by the way, you might like to know that Gorbachev and the Pope are bosom buddies. It's true. I'm going to show you the documentation right now. When the wall came down in 1989, within 20 days they were meeting together, and they came out of those meetings declaring the birth of the new world order. The November 30th edition, 1989 of USA Today newspaper, the front page article said, both want to strike a deal for a united Europe from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains. And they have been working on that deal from there until this present time. Matter of fact, I have an article for you, published in the New York Times on March the 9th of 1992. The title, My Partner, the Pope, by Mikhail Gorbachev. Won't take time to read it. This article appeared a couple of months later in U.S. News and World Report, May 18 of 1992. Pope John Paul II is promoting Mikhail Gorbachev, a fellow Slav whom he considers a crypto-Christian, that means a secret Christian, whatever that animal is, to be the ideal presiding officer of the United Europe. Pope John Paul said all of Europe should unite and Mikhail Gorbachev would be the ideal president of the United Europe. The Bible says the false prophet will cause the whole world and influence the whole world to follow the Antichrist. This is as close to it as I've seen anyone get so far. Bottom line. The mystery of iniquity does already work. It's not counting us here. Far advanced. We're in the end game now. I've not come from Richmond, Indiana, to tell you the end time is coming. I have come here to declare to you with no uncertainty. The end time has arrived. We are in it at this moment. And we must work while it is day. For the night is coming very quickly now, and no man can work. So, we can do it. Separately, no, we won't make it. But together, I believe we can shake this city, this state, this nation, and the world. All I know is the Bible says at the time I'm feeling I live right now, it says that the Antichrist will corrupt many by flattery. This is Daniel 11, 31 through 33. The Antichrist will corrupt many by flattery. Then it says, but the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. That's the verse we named our course from. They that understand among the people shall instruct many. That's what we call our course, Understanding the End Time. We created that tool so that God's people could fulfill that prophecy, which is for our time. If we don't fulfill it, nobody's going to. It's for now. And we're always here. Could you possibly believe that you could be a part of God's end time plan? I absolutely believe it. You know, I used to think, man, the Apostle Paul would just come back. If Peter would just come back and shadow zap some people, you know, we could have a real revival. And it dawned on me one day, they're not here. Furthermore, they're not coming. And the reason they're not here is because God didn't want them here. If he'd have wanted them here, he'd have put them here. God put here who he wanted here for right now, and we're it. And you can wait on somebody else and say, well, I'm just not worthy. I know none of us are worthy. I'm just not a strong enough person. None of us are strong enough. But you know something? The Bible says, when we're weak, then we're strong. God doesn't use strength anyway. The only thing we can use are the people that know they're not strong enough. Then he gets the glory instead of us giving him glory. Right? Let's clap unto the Lord right now. Thank you, Jesus. There could be 10 times as many as there are on this picture. Here they are. Gorbachev, Turner, Talbot, Clinton, and Louis Strong, Timothy Worth, Pope John Paul II, Cardinal Lorenzi, Bishop William Swing, Robert Mueller, Al Gore. many, many others. Do we hate those men? Certainly not. Most of them have no idea what they're doing. And we're not trying to stir hatred toward these men at all. But we do need to understand what's going on right now. I'll tell you what I want to do. We're going to pause. I'm going to allow you to stand in the rest of the absolute emergency. Please don't flip out. I need about 5 or 10 more minutes because I want to try to bring all else together where we are right now and what we can do. But just to rest yourself, stand, introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know. Make a new friend right now. Let's all stand together. Let's see for just a moment about where we are tonight. We are at a very pivotal juncture. Something that has not been emphasized much in the news happened toward the latter part of 2000. It was a long time in planning. Kofi Annan had a visitor. His name was Ted Turner. He came to him in 1998. Ted Turner said to Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations, we have to get the religious leaders to supporting the one world governmental system. The only way to do it is to bring all of them to the United Nations and to get them to sign a document of unity of belief. Now, that was launched in 1998. The actual meeting was held August the 28th to the 31st of this last year. Maurice Strong was the chairman for the meeting. Ted Turner was the honorary chairman because he provided the money. Ted Turner was one of the keynote speakers. He stood in front of that crowd. I read his speech off of the internet. He said, you know, when I was a kid growing up, I was raised as a Christian. And Christians teach that you must believe in Jesus Christ in order to be saved. He said, I looked around and saw how many Christians we had and thought heaven is going to be a pretty empty place. And then he roused this interfaith crowd at the United Nations building by saying, you know, I have since come to learn that Buddhists, Muslims, and he named off a bunch of pagan religions. He said, we all worship the same God. We call him by different names, but we all worship the same God. And the crowd at the UN went delirious. The problem is, there's not a word of truth in what Ted Turner said. Not a word of truth in it, because if that's true, Baal would have been all right in the Old Testament. Ashtoreth would have been all right in the Old Testament. It's simply not true. Allah is not the same God as the God, the one true God that we worship here today. And so, this is a battle between light and darkness. Now, while that was happening, they all came together August the 28th to the 31st, and they adopted unanimously a declaration called the Millennium Declaration, which is nothing but Mikhail Gorbachev's Earth Charter revised. I have an article in the new magazine that you will be receiving shortly in the latest edition, which is at the printer right now, comparing the Earth Charter to the Millennium Declaration. And I prove that all the principles that Mikhail Gorbachev and Maurice Strong put in the Earth Charter are in the Millennium Declaration. So what we're actually watching, watching the hand of Mikhail Gorbachev behind the scenes, guiding the development of one world government. Are you hearing me? Now, in addition to that, 1 week later, the largest meeting of heads of state came together. Also at the UN, they also adopted the same document that the religious adopted. Why is that so critical? Because in Revelation chapter number 13, there are two entities, a political beast and a religious beast. The political beast is the Antichrist, the religious beast is the false prophet. What we saw at the United Nations in late August, early September, was the religious beast and the political beast signing an agreement together to support each other. We're watching actually the prophesied formation of the union of politics and religion. Have you ever heard of politics and religion? That's what we are witnessing right now. And Kofi Annan, since that was done, has said repeatedly, we now have our agreed upon agenda, the Millennium Declaration. We are ready to implement it into the 21st century. They've got their marching orders. They believe all lights are green. They're ready to go. Now, in the meantime, while that's happening, another prophecy states that there will be an agreement affecting the status of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. We have watched for 2,000 years while there were no negotiations about Jerusalem, no negotiations about the Temple Mount from 70 A.D. until July 2000, zero, zilch, none. Now, they started trying to work on a peace in the Middle East, but they always avoided Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. However, Bill Clinton tried to get the final deal done, and so he had to allow those two issues to surface. And when they did, then the fan hit the fire. The fire hit the fan. And all conflict broke out. They started in July at Camp David trying to settle the Temple Mount and the East of Jerusalem. Why is that so critical? Because Jerusalem is the issue over which the battle of Armageddon is going to be fought. You can prove that conclusively. Zechariah 14:2. I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. The reason it's so critical is because Almighty God 4,000 years ago said, I will put my name in Jerusalem. Satan said, if that's where you want your name, that's where I want mine. So the conflict began. The reason that the Temple Mount is the most disputed 35 acres on the face of this earth is because it's a spiritual issue. God said, I'll put my name in. The devil said, if you want yours there, I'll build my Alak Samas, I'll build my Devil Rock there. Now that's what's going on right now. This all is getting ready to culminate a few years from now in the Battle of Armageddon, and that's when the Antichrist will meet the real Christ face to face. That's when Satan and God are going to have their final face-off. It's the final battle between light and darkness, the final battle between good and evil. There's a whole lot more going on in the Middle East besides a contest between Ariel Sharon and the Arafat. That's not, they're just the puppets, and they're just the front men. What we're really seeing here is the final confrontation and its conversion together. I don't know how soon this will come to a head. All I know is the Temple Mount is going to be shared. I don't know how we get from here to there. It looks like Ariel Sharon will be elected Prime Minister if all holds. We're less than 3 weeks away. He's presently leading by 20 points. No one thought he would ever become a Prime Minister of Israel. He's a strong person. He's a strong leader. I can't tell you how it's all going to come out. I shouldn't say that. I can tell you how it's going to come out. I can't tell you how we get there. There's going to be a sharing of the Temple Mount. Everybody's going to breathe a temporary sigh of relief where we've got this thing settled, but it won't be settled. Ultimately, the Antichrist is going to stand in that Temple Mount claiming to be God. And when he does, that's the trigger for the final Great Tribulation. Now, there are some other things happening right now. Don't have time to go into it all night. You listen to the broadcast. You know we talk about it all the time. We know the China situation is still boiling. A lot of people say to me, you put this full-page ad in about China last year. It hasn't happened yet. I know it hasn't happened yet, but you can take to the bank. It is going to happen. It's in the Bible. Read it for yourself. Revelation chapter 9, verse 15 and 16. I can't tell you exactly when, but it is going to happen as sure as there's a God in heaven right now. So consequently, don't let anybody bluff you and don't get cold feet. There are some things, if I speculate on, I may be wrong on, but if the Bible says it, you don't even have to worry about it being wrong. You can put it in writing, you can sign your name to it. It is going to happen. The only question is when. So consequently, that's where we are. We're in very pivotal times tonight. I'm predicating all of our activities that we've got maybe 7 years, maybe 8 years, but it could be 10 or 11. It could spring out. Ariel Sharon could get charge of Israel. He could put the brakes on everything, and everything could go into lockdown for 2 or 3 or 4 years. That could happen. I can't control that. God's the one that controls that. But the prophecies are true, so don't let anybody undermine your faith. Because if the Bible says it is going to happen, and let me tell you, we could use an extra 2 or 3 years to work, because we've got a lot of work to do in a very, very, very short time. And so what I'm saying to all of you tonight, let's get together, and let's draw near to God. Let's have a great end-time revival, and let's shake our world one more time for Jesus Christ. Would you stand with me right now? Could I get someone at the music? I'd like to sing a chorus in closing tonight. Thank you for your marvelous attention, Joan. I'd like to be with you. So I feel like we should turn our hearts heavenward before we leave this place this evening. I think we've had a wonderful evening to think about these things. Let's not let this be a one-night affair. Let's somehow join together and become a striking force for Jesus Christ. There's a song that says, He's coming soon, with joy we'll welcome His returning. And if you don't know it, it's simple. You can click on quickly. And does anybody believe He's really coming? And do you believe He's coming soon?